Hi, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well and are pretty safe. I have a few questions for tonight. This one's from Catherine, and I think it touches on a few, perhaps not so much misunderstandings, but basically not really quite getting the idea about spiritual development, and it's quite interesting how we engage with life, especially around spiritual development. So let me just talk about the question that she asks. So, she said, I recently read an article in one of the journals on consciousness. Seems to me that the article addressed personal consciousness, but it struck me that consciousness is, in fact, the inseparable everything and infinite continuum of which personal human consciousness is only a very tiny aspect. Well, I'll read it through. It seems humans are evolving out of that tiny personal consciousness into the infinite continuum of consciousness, the latter, which is ironically already fully contained in us, yet not yet unnoticed. We spend a lot of time talking about the evolution of consciousness beyond the personal by asking us to notice the personal, not judge, and step back from it. Could you also try to provide a picture of the experiences of consciousness outside the personal that we may come to encounter? Lots of words. And one of the most important words in there that we all are involved with using is this word consciousness. Really, consciousness is really a word for that has a meaning consciously aware. You're consciously aware of something. If you have awareness, if you're able to engage with putting things together, you have a level of consciousness. I've also talked often about this business about a continuum. It's not an infinite continuum. It's a continuum. It's one that includes the barest of awarenesses and moves forward into a level of relationship with awareness that covers everything, covers all levels of awareness that can exist, thus called universal awareness. We see spiritual growth often personalized and in our world as a category that people can reach into, become a part of, and attain certain levels of agreed upon importance. All of that is engaging the way a personality engages with things. We have a referential point that we take a look at from a personalized point of view. A bunch of personalities get together and agree that this is the way things should be. That's like a collective consciousness. It doesn't mean that agreement is true or not true. It just means they agree. In relationship to cultural definitions as well as personal definitions, and more universal even than cultural beliefs, it's very difficult for us to allow ourselves to move past something that we value. And every culture has reference points or reference areas on a continuum from zero, if you hear zero, right through to infinity. It's hard for us to understand what that means. Hard for us to understand what zero means, and as well infinity. But once again, we relate to definitions, and those definitions are highly charged emotionally. And mm, we consider what everyone else thinks. And, well, if there's 10 billion people who believe this way of thinking is right, it must be right. If there's 50 billion people who, and I'm saying billion, it's not on our planet, it's only 8.5 billion. Wow. So, well, let's say million instead then, make it a little bit easier. The bigger numbers apparently are valid. This has been known for a long time not to be true. It's hard for us to fathom that imperfection. But internal growth is not about perfection. It never has been. It's about the ability to align with and engage with higher states for the purpose of helping others as well as yourself. I've told stories for years about these, in my terms, giants of beings, males and females, both, that have the ability to handle tremendous amounts of energy, soften it down, and be able to stand balanced and stable as energies from higher states pour through them for the purpose of helping others. I don't know why I've been able to witness that, but that's a reality for me. And of course, when I say that's a reality for me, it's a reality for others that I had met along the way as well. That doesn't make a personality any better or worse than anybody else, but my thoughts on this is that if we can begin to allow ourselves to focus less on this idea versus another idea, how important you are versus someone else, and just notice that there are things that make you valuable, and there are things that even you don't necessarily agree with in terms of how you have lived life or will live life or could live life. None of that at a higher state is called negative. It's not judged. But it is stimulated. It's an act of love, actually. I'm probably getting ahead of myself here, Catherine. But it's an act of love because higher states want us to be able to perceive in a similar way to those higher states. They don't waste much time judging personality structures. It's not relevant. What they're looking for is, can you stand and have energy flow through you for the purpose of helping another without putting your whole focus on you and how important you are for doing that? Can you stand and watch you? Stand and watch the help that is there, an act of love. Purposeful love to enable the other to become functionally able to do a similar thing to what you're doing. Maybe in a different way, but and the way of doing it is not etched in stone either. far too often we have to, unless you're caught up in teaching like I am, or other people are that I happen to know, you try and talk, discuss, engage in a manner that might put an idea across. And you're lucky to be able to succeed at 50-50, because there's always the input, first of all, of a dialogue with another who's already protecting what they believe, or they would rather be involved with legitimately folks who believe they know exactly how things are, because any teacher worth it, her salt or his salt knows for sure that basic backgrounds are beginnings, not endings. Everybody searches for the infinite right truth. Truth is built on the ability to engage with and relate to higher states, knowing full well that those are states beyond which they could engage with before they began to engage with them. Whoa, what a statement. The other thing where we get confused is when we are engaged with higher states, we believe automatically our personality should be like this, or like that, or like some other thing. Or we set up rules. This is how they should be if they are really engaged with these states. It's very fascinating. I find this fascinating. These rules are made up so that we can feel comforted if we can have a little tiny speck of whatever that is occur in us. We are comforted by being validated, primarily by ourselves. It's the one we love the best. But we're loved internally by that flow who will set up a picture based on what you believe should be, let you follow it, give you encouragement even sometimes to follow it, until you find out that, oh my goodness, that might be a dead end, might not be an ultimate understanding of what might be possible. And at the same time, a person is allowed to think whatever which way they think about spiritual development, so that they can begin to understand and move something just beyond what they believe, so that there's a movement or motion towards broadening the position in place, which is important in our personalities, beyond the one we already currently have. This is the nature of growing. Now, I have talked to people who have said, no, I used to believe this way, and now I don't believe that way because I know this other way must be the right way. Because, and they give you 5 or 10 reasons of it, and so many other people believe in it and all the rest of this stuff. And that is legitimate for them. But I'd just like to tell you, when Christianity first started out, there were very small numbers who ever believed in such a thing. My version of the leader of Christianity, Jesus, for example, is an individual who is quite capable of transmitting energy. You would say, oh, healing, that would be it. No, that isn't it. From my point of view, of course. That's a piece of something that could be understood by you and I, if we happen to live in the crowd of small crowds of people that came around him. But a higher state flow in him would enable eventually people around him to be able to handle more energy, because he did his work so that others could do work after he wasn't going to be there. Someone asked me, how would he ever know that? Well, I think it was Bronwyn or Pat, maybe, who asked the question, could you talk about a relationship with the soul? Those chakras are part of the soul structure. As in the Christian background, we come out of a Hebrew background. The Hebrew background and backbone is related to those Sephiroth, energy flowing in from a high state, operating through a system, through Moses, for example, or through Jesus or anybody else that was in that kind of ilk, flowing through so that whatever they needed to do could be done in the way that it needed to be done at that time, whatever. Same in relationship to chakras in Buddhism and Hinduism, in Taoist orientation, Islamic orientation. These are still there. Our dilemma is we don't talk like that. Same as when we talk about consciousness. These are words. Why would we talk like that? Well, because they may be real. Well, they're not real unless I experience them. Of course, from your perspective. And if the bulk of the people don't experience them, then they can't be real, can they? Not according to physics. Physics created tools to perceive energy that was unseeable by us. So they got bigger sets of glasses. Astronomy, really big sets of glasses. Astrophysics, heavy sets of ears, huge helpers to perceive those things that are not perceivable by us. Electrons, well, we know we can't see them, but they're moving forms. Electron microscopes sort of give us a glimmer. And then we find out later made of different stuff, kind of. But still functional. Still aligns with ideas we had before, kind of. Evolution or development is fraught with misunderstanding. But nothing that is misunderstood should be annihilated, because they're stepping stones towards understanding something broader. So we have a propensity, one could say, in the human realms to perceive that all other forms are inferior to us. Dogs, cats, blah, 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 blah. Well, there are some who think dogs and cats are superior to us. We think everything pretty well is inferior to us because we haven't met anything else that is superior. So we talk in terms of these words that place us in positions, place us in a relationship with life that assumes certain values or certain ways of thinking must be broader or better than another. This is normal for us. How can it be negative? Our whole civilizations have been built on these things. Well, it's not really negative. It's just incomplete. Divisive, protective, and holds us for long periods of time in a place where no movement can be made under penalty of being wrong. Wow. In our world, there aren't as many guillotines and there aren't as many fires burnt with people being thrown into them, but there are still folks who downplay other people just because they talk differently. They try to explain an idea through them, not through somebody else, but maybe slightly broader. Therefore, they're searching for words all the time. Words are important. A willingness to attempt to understand is very valuable in the process of development. You will not get it right all the time. Right meaning you will not understand another person all the time. And you will fight not to sometimes if it stretches the way you think things shouldn't be stretched, because you've already decided this versus that is better, whatever that means. It's fine to do that. Higher states don't take any, they just see that as a kind of development in these states, in these planes. This is how these beings do things until they don't. Not mystical. It's not really truly as logical as one would like to think it is. And it's not really that open either. And many of our philosophical backgrounds are not that open. They're very basically defensive. We prioritize. Your idea is better than mine, mine's better than yours, blah, 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 blah. Not really. Are they possible? Yeah, maybe. Are there more options than what I believe must be true? Absolutely. Infinity is not just a word. It promotes a willingness to allow you to stretch, to broaden, and respect a willingness to go beyond that. Yet you don't have to annihilate anything that was before. That's the way we think. It's not the way higher states think. They see everything in progressions, movement. Therefore, continuum is normal. Every facet of a continuum, from zero to infinity, is relative and can naturally be intertwined to promote within the self a consideration, to allow one to possibly engage with their mind, with their emotions, but also with the experience of perception called awareness. You can perceive that energy flowing in you. That was Pat's question. Yes, but I'm just saying, if you perceive something, I suggest you watch it like a movie. Oh, you watch a movie, you pay your money, you get a seat, you watch a movie, you come out of the film and you go home and someone says, well, what movie did you see? I saw this. Oh, I heard it wasn't a good movie. And you say, I enjoyed it. I noticed in the watching of the movie, I realized what they were trying to put forward. You're watching a movie. As you're growing, watch your movie. Don't negate it, but don't necessarily say it's the only way things should be. You have that option. It's on the continuum. It's allowed, but also allow movement. When you watch a movie, I just mentioned this, I was trying to write it down. Attempt not to negate what you thought of before as true, or any intermediate stage, or any vulnerable stage. Take a look at it, be okay with it. Look at it as if you may not want to take it on. You might want to take it on, but what do I do with my old idea? It's wrong. No, it's not wrong. It's part of the building block that got you to the point where you could actually allow yourself to move beyond the importance of your most right decision-making process according to how you were trained to do that, or decided to do that based on a particular view. For example, a philosophical view, one could say. I will not believe anything other than what I believe now. That's a philosophical point of view. You have the right. Also, you have the right to change your mind at any given moment. But also, you have the right to allow yourself to perceive beyond what you believe would be true at any given moment, or to revise, or reconsider, or see how something might fit. Are you allowed to have anything fit that doesn't use the right words exactly the way you believe you should use them? Words are important, remember. Is it possible that words also hold us in positions so that we can feel comforted by our present accumulation and usage? I happen to, in my life, have seen that may be true. However, it's only a life coming from here. You live in you, and sooner or later, you will recognize that you grow through you. And in doing so, you promote your film, you align with it and protect it, and you're desperately afraid to shift and change it. Because if you do, and you happen to notice a flow moving through you, You have a couple of options. You can use that flow for your own purposes. Remember, I said an act of love on a higher state is to let you use it for your own purposes, building your own images for your own purposes that comfort you and your own positions. Mine as well. Anyone else's as well. Until it's okay for you to see that flow and find it as valuable, and sometimes might even consider the possibility it is more valuable, as others in high states believe. They have a form here on these planes, one that can steadfast their relationship with what they are doing for the purpose of broadening out our pathways on these planes, including the love of what we insist we have to be like, including the love of being okay, being supportive of our movements, recognizing some falsehoods and some real truths within us, and also continuing on until we can watch that flow coming through like we're watching a movie. It is moving through me. Oh my goodness, I have no idea where it's going. Let me just keep watching so I can learn more. The act of learning beyond what you have allowed yourself to take in is an act of love with the alignment. You love to want to be in alignment with the soul or the higher state. So many names other organizations might call, many levels, different names. And that's up for grabs. Everybody can do that. We feel very confident in the importance of self when we start naming things, because it gives us a sense of worth. We are desperately afraid we will lose our sense of worth with others if we do not align with what everyone else is doing and saying. This is natural. I do not see that as negative at all. I see that as an act of being human. What do you think? Have you seen yourself do these things? Do you ever change how you talk to various people? Have you not noticed that? Welcome to humanity. In this really fascinating question, let me see where I left off here. Pardon me. What I said here was that because it is an underlying question, could you also try to provide a picture of the experiences of consciousness outside of the personal that we may come to encounter? Yeah, that was one of them. You end up watching that flow move through you, wondering where it's going and how it's helping. And that is, we often call that transmission. Many folks that I've met discuss transmission in terms of the personality being in charge, setting up certain ways of doing that. You can transmit energy. You can almost do anything, but transmit energy and therefore take credit for the transmission because you've transmitted it. It's a vulnerability we have. Our self-importance is strong. That helps us to survive, by the way. It's not just nonsense. It's helped us to survive up. We're not trying to, up to now, but we're not trying to relinquish self-importance. We're trying to fuse it with the recognition that the energy flowing through us that we couldn't perceive before is doing something that would be helpful to another in their development as a spiritual being. Very interesting aspect of higher states. And it implies that the form that is constructed, this personality construct, which is energetic in nature, all around us and in us, and we utilize it in very many ways of expressing. I'm moving my hands and blah, 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 blah. This is an act of love from a higher state to inquire on how to construct a form so it can be ultimately a part of helping humanity on the planes that the form lives on, so that the form itself is part of the helping orientation. The personalization of the form is quite interesting. Look, if you can understand any aspect of reincarnation, you leave this shell here on the physical plane, that's the physical body. Consider the possibility that you will leave the emotional shell on the emotional levels oscillating relative to your capacity to engage with and handle emotion. You leave your mental structure oscillating on a mental plane along with others that are oscillating in a manner relative to how you have constructed your mental facility so that you can be a part of helping these planes. And you as a form, a being, spiritual being, a being in the process of development, you will search out to find another form, either to help these planes, as the Buddhists consider it to be of great value, and I'm inclined to think I could support that idea without any hassle. And also to move on into other worlds of relationship with existence. Existence on a continuum is huge in nature, beyond our understanding, perhaps. And at the same time, one might inhabit through another individual, mother, another form which may be cultivated physically, emotionally, and mentally for the purpose of helping and being stable enough to be helpful on these planes and to be conscious of it, consciously aware of those things that are in us, including that love or soul, one could say, if you believe that. Chakras as an aspect of kind of a mechanistic concept or an aspect of how these valves can be turned on and stimulated to be helpful under certain circumstances, different or similar to the ones we know. Considering the possibility that you are the soul enclosed in a form, one could say that as well. It's another part of our belief, a belief. Or some don't like the idea of using the word, here we go with words again, soul. They use higher beingness or other words similar to this, so that they can speak about those things as a continual engagement. If you have ever been a party to remembering other lifetimes, not for the purpose of elevating your personality, it's kind of nonsense. One could say, I just assessed that. Although If that's all you can do, that's all you can do. That's not an assessment, that's a reality. But you may use those because you may be shown things that relate to another lifetime where you could be helping yourself with those things as a learning modality. If you were too intense in another lifetime, didn't follow through on something, didn't do something else, didn't do something, maybe you can get a hint from a previous time. Or maybe you are a traveler that has been here before, have full knowledge of that, and are just trying to be helpful in the way that you can be. And you find yourself finding out that that is what you can do, and you don't have to do anything other than broaden your understanding beyond the accoutrements or the words or the way people digest things and express them that are already laid out for us. To be a voyageur, to be a discoverer, takes tremendous patience and a lot of courage not to necessarily agree with what your personality dictates that you should. To learn how to go beyond step by step, little tiny bit at a time, doesn't mean you'll get it right versus wrong. You'll be good versus bad. It means you are journeying the best you can. And you will influence yourself in your engagement with growth, but you know how to accept the help of others who have been in that same part of the journey that you are, because you're not focused on your personalizations as much as you thought you needed to be before to survive. These are just thumbnail sketches of something way beyond the words that we have to use in particular places for an understanding that is approved by us. Approval is a great challenge for us. Disapproval is a memory, potent, to be respected, but not necessarily followed. It's as if there is a great parent in the sky who will negate us when we get things wrong. This is us being young, and we are young as a species. Not bad, not good either, not right, not wrong. That's attempting to be functional in a manner that would be seemingly helpful. And this, those higher states, will support until you allow yourself to stretch a bit in the directions that you believe you have to take, and even reconsider those at some time. It is quite okay as long as you can allow yourself to go beyond your relationship with how you've constructed it to the best of your ability. Perception is valuable, much more helpful, and thus we need more help in it to go beyond the ideals and ideas we believe have to be cast iron true. and most of them are not. I'm not sure. I might say one more thing, Catherine. Made a comment. I haven't even read it since I made it. Outside the personal, the infinite aspect searches to have a form that can handle aspects of universal consciousness that can be helped to focus consciously off the personal, aligning with purpose that relates to the infinite, therefore changing and evolving all of the planes. We're lucky to be able to even come close to allowing that to be an understanding. But for sure, we do not understand it fully. But careful when you use the word consciousness. Many use it just as a pseudonym for God, infinite consciousness, universal something or other. States, high states. It is if an ant knows the difference between moving one way or another for the purposes that it holds true, it has a level of consciousness. Same is true for a dog, a cat. Same is true for almost any living beingness, you and I. Hope that helps a little bit. I'm not so sure that I have enough time to go into this one, but this is just related to Pat's question about the soul, Pat Donahue from New Jersey. I tried to cover a little bit about our relationship with the soul in that previous question, Pat. It's not what I have down here, but it's kind of semi-close. And what does the process of becoming more aware of it look like? Well, I can give you a couple of things. Your life is not really your own. When that is extremely real, although there are moments of your own, for sure. Same as it was before, because there's no judgment in that. You start to touch on a higher state purposes, and you feel the pull of doing that. You can be a part of that particular way of engaging and know it. You're really conscious of it happening from time to time. It's at first it's quite intermittent. You can be talking about all kinds of ball game. I don't care what it is. Suddenly there's a link there that in your next 15, 20 words are just straight out of your mouth before you can catch them. And there's no negation in them at all. There's no elevation in it. It's just something that if heard by someone that where these words relate to them, they will just be held to listen to them. They can't stop. Or they will run like crazy from them. And they won't stop running. Both of these things are real, just being right there. There's no competition in this process. Everyone is seen as, what can I do to help? And often the help is silent because it's transmission. Sometimes not so silent. And the you that is not your personality The you that is invoked is not your personality you, how important you are, or I am, or for doing this or doing that. And that's not the you. It's as if you're looking at you engaging in a manner that relates directly to helping an individual. That's a soul connection. And it doesn't relate to how you think that person is, or how they should be, or anything of that nature whatsoever. Has to do with their internal growth. See if I said anything else here. I said our personality is quite content to judge and justify and protest based on our beliefs, because they give us value, and yet the real world value internally just loves and supports whatever one wishes, simply until the personal can be more transparent and seen by itself individually. People think they see each other and they don't even see the surface of them. This is normal. This is not a judgment. This is just how we all are. And we do what we can from time to time. One of the things that can happen too is you walk into a room, for example, and suddenly these chakra systems on the emotional level, or close to the body, or beyond that structure, will take in information, and you will know exactly where that other person is in relationship to their evolution, even if they don't know it themselves, even if they say they're somewhere else, some great high state. You will want to, if in your personality, say something about that. You will not be allowed to speak it, because devaluing another's value system in that level may be hurtful to them. You'll be held. Your tongue will be tied to the top of your mouth, and not with crazy glue, because it'll be released. And then you'll wonder why. These are early stages of your link being stronger and stronger with that higher state or soul, whatever you want to call it. There is nothing wrong with this. This is a method of internal training. And slowly you begin to understand that that's viable based on an attempt to help you broaden beyond your personal assertions, and thus validate yourself versus understanding what relates to higher states. I hope this helps a tiny speck. And if not, you can write me a note and tell me what else you think I should say, or what, however that works for you. Fortunately, I can laugh with Pat, because that's a good thing. It's part of the O'Neill background. So I wish everybody well. We're just going to meditate now for about an hour, roughly. And please keep safe. So now we'll just begin. And now we'll just begin to do the balancing and the grounding. And good night, everybody.